Welcome, everyone, to the Monday edition of Fair Territory. It is Martin Luther King Day, a day to reflect on King's legacy and all that he taught us. It is also on our show a day for a first. We are going to rescind last week's Dork of the Week, which went unanimously to the Los Angeles Angels. And we are going to rescind it because the Angels have agreed to pay the insurance and the salary in 2026 of that prospect, Rio Foster, who was injured in a car accident. You see the story by Sam Blum last week, and this is from the other day. The Angels will continue to insure the prospect severely injured in a car crash, his mother says. This story is the follow-up to Sam's original story. I don't know that Sam's story I don't know that it didn't have an impact on this. Sorry for the double negative. It seems to me that maybe the Angels were going to do this all along. That's a possibility. And it seems to me also that once Sam published his story, his original story, and then it went public, that perhaps the Angels were shamed into it. I don't know. Either way, the Angels are doing the right thing. We are rescinding, for the first time in Fair Territory history, a Dork of the Week award. Angels, good job by doing this for Rio Foster. All right, now let's get to the matters at hand. And we have quite a bit at hand today. The Mets, Ha-Seong Kim, the Hall of Fame ballot that I published today, a lot to get to. Let's start with the Mets, and we'll get into Cody Bellinger in this conversation as well. The Mets have had an offseason that I would describe as curious. Others might describe as borderline incoherent. Now, you might say, Ken, why do you say that? Why are you getting on the Mets again? Well, David Stearns, president of baseball operations, said at the start of the offseason, and has said consistently since, that defense was going to be a priority for the Mets. And the Nimmo for Semien trade, Brandon Nimmo for Marcus Semien, certainly reflected that. Semien, a Gold Glove winner last year. Yes, his offense has declined in the last 2 years, but defensively, he remains elite. And yet their moves since, these are the ones that to me have been curious. Now, we started with the Mets trying to get Kyle Tucker for $55 million a year, which would have given them two corner outfielders making over $50 million a year, neither of whom at this point in their career is average defensively. Both might get back to that, but they're not that right now. Mets didn't get Tucker, Dodgers did. The pivot was to Bo Bichette. Now, Bo Bichette is one of the best hitters, or perhaps even the best hitter available in free agency this year. He's a guy who hits all kinds of pitching in all ways. He's a really outstanding hitter. He has never played third base, and that's where the Mets intend to play him. Now, Bo is a shortstop for his entire career. He played second base in the World Series. I'm sure he can play third. And Jorge Polanco, who has never played first base, will be at times the first baseman, probably the bulk of the time. He has never played first base in the majors. Now, I'm expecting these guys will adapt. Polanco practiced first base last year with the Mariners before games. Okay, it's just not exactly the way you would expect it to go when a team says, we're stressing defense, and then they're signing players to play out of position. And the Bichette deal, 3 years, $126 million, is curious in another way as well. First year salary, $42 million. And then he has a $5 million bonus if he opts out. So he may be getting $47 million for 1 year with the Mets. And keep in mind that $47 million, the bulk of it, not all of it, the bulk of it is subject to a 110% luxury tax. So it's possible. The Mets effectively will be paying Bo Bichette $100 million or so for 1 year. That is an interesting choice. It's not my money, it's Steve Cohen's money, and we'll see what else he does. And that's what we need to get to now, what the Mets need to get to now. So they still need one more bat. And Will Salmon of The Athletic had a notes column about the Mets yesterday explaining where they are right now. And he mentioned their need for a versatile outfielder. Cody Bellinger is that guy. Cody Bellinger, in my mind, probably should have been the Mets' first choice, given what they've said about defense. But at the same time, the one thing the Mets have not addressed yet, to a meaningful extent, is their starting pitching. That was the downfall of the team last year. Now, listen, it's only January 19th, and this offseason is not over by any stretch of the imagination. I fully expect the Mets are going to get starting pitching, at some point. They've addressed their bullpen with Devin Williams and Luke Weaver, but they still need a starter, and they still need an outfielder, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they proceed. Cody Bellinger, one of the outfielders they're considering, not attached to draft pick compensation, but he's sitting on an offer from the Yankees, 5 years, 155 to 160 million with two opt-outs, according to the Athletic's Brandon Cuddy. And he hasn't taken that deal. Now, maybe he hasn't taken that deal because he's waiting to see what the Mets and Blue Jays do and whether they come back to him with something better. Or maybe he just ends up back with the Yankees. That would seem to be the logical thing. He is the Yankees' number one priority. But we'll see how that all plays out. And then we'll see what the Mets do with a starting pitcher because, frankly, they're in the mix for Freddie Peralta in a trade. And I'm sure they're in the mix for other pitchers in a trade as well. But if they sign a Framber Valdez or a Zach Gallen, two free agents, the two best free agents who are still out there from a starting pitching standpoint, they're losing two more draft picks. Now, I don't see that as a big deal for a team like the Mets. Their farm system is in a really good place right now. If they blow out their draft and lose their third and sixth picks as well as their second and fifth, so you go second, third, fifth, sixth, all gone, I don't see that being too cumbersome for the Mets. They can handle that, but it's a choice that they're going to need to consider as they go forward here. So, one other thing I want to get to with the Mets, their offense. And certainly the question was asked and has been asked, and it was asked of me on Foul Territory the other day. Is their offense better than it was last year? Now, I wasn't really anticipating the question. And my answer was, it seems to me the Mets are on equal footing or perhaps even better than last year. But I want to show you the Steamer projections. Now, these are advanced analytical looks at the Mets players, the ones that they've acquired, the ones who have departed. And it shows that the ones who have departed, if you look at their combined WRC plus, weighted runs created plus, it's an advanced metric that shows you basically a complete offensive picture of a player. These are projections. Again, these are merely projections, and projections do not always come true. But you see where if you add up, and I don't know if this is the proper way to do it analytically, but if you add up the three guys who left and the three guys who are coming, the three guys who left, their projections are slightly higher overall. We'll see how it plays out. I kind of think that the newcomers, Bichette in particular, are going to be really good. I'm not so sure about Simeon because he's been in a 2-year decline, but it's fairly close offensively. One more bat would put it over the top, I would think, for their offensive balance compared to last year. So that's the Mets, but they weren't the only NL East team with big news in recent days. Just yesterday, the Braves announced that Ha-Seong Kim, who they had signed earlier this offseason, 1 year, $20 million, he suffered an injury to his finger and is going to be out 4 to 5 months. Now, Ha-Seong Kim, the whole idea was he was going to stabilize shortstop for them, enable them to use Mauricio Dubon in more of a utility role. That is not going to happen, at least not right away. The expectation among Braves people is that Ha-Seong Kim is going to be out till at least, or probably about, I should say, about mid-May. Could be a little bit longer than that. These things you never quite know. But if they get him back in mid-May, they'll go with Dubon for 6 weeks or so, and they'll probably find some external option to just kind of give them a backup if Dubon needs a day off here or there. They're okay. They're not in a horrible spot because they acquired Dubon before signing Kim. But would you say this is ideal? I would not say this is ideal. The Braves, though, have had, in my opinion, a very good offseason. They've supplemented their bullpen with Robert Suarez and others. They have signed Kim, a player who should be good for them if he gets on the field at some point. And they've done some good things, but they still have one more thing to do, and that is get a starting pitcher. And we'll see where the Braves end up on that. They've been in on the Freddie Peralta sweepstakes, though I don't know that they've been in to the same degree as some other clubs. They're a team that should bounce back this season. I fully expect that they're going to be better. Mike Yastrzemski is another addition that they've made. They've made a number of additions that are kind of 30-something players, but they still look like they're going to be pretty formidable once Ha-Seong Kim gets on the field. All right, with that, we end up the lead. We are going to be right back with the Inside Dish.
Nobody likes a bloated cell phone bill. It can consume you. It can take over. It can be very annoying. So I know that 2025 ended Kratz, and that's when you have your end of year sales, but there actually is still one sale that is running until the end of the month.
Mint Mobile. They still have their 50% off their unlimited premium wireless offer that you got to go and get and take advantage of because it's not necessarily going to be around all the time.
And all plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Quit overspending on wireless with 50% off unlimited premium wireless. Plans start at $15 a month at mintmobile.com/territory. That's mintmobile.com/territory. Limited time offer. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months. Plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Over 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com.
All right, time now for the Inside Dish, the part of the show where I talk about something I've written, trend in the game, something else going on. And today it's an easy call. I'm going to talk about my Hall of Fame ballot, which I published today in The Athletic, and of course wrote an entire column about it because a lot of us, that's what we do. We write explanations of why we voted the way we did. Now, my ballot this year is stuffed, frankly. It has 10 names on it, which surprised me a little bit. I didn't know at the start of the process that I would get to 10. That's the maximum number that voting members of the Baseball Writers Association of America are allowed to vote for. But I've got 10 on mine, and I've got 6 first-timers. Here are the names: Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Felix Hernandez, Andy Pettitte, Mark Burley, Cole Hamels, David Wright, and Dustin Pedroia. Beltran, Jones, Rollins, and Utley, those are my holdovers. The others are all first-time selections for me. Basically, my ballot had 2 themes, and I explained this in the column at length. The first theme was this, and this was kind of the main one. No longer am I going to penalize players for things that they did not accomplish through little or no fault of their own. So what are we talking about? Guys whose careers ended prematurely due to injuries, Pedroia and Wright. A guy who might have pitched longer at a higher level if he wasn't abused by his team early in his career, and that's Felix Hernandez. And then a guy who's a little bit different than those, who is quite similar to another of my first-time choices, Andy Pettitte, but doesn't have the same postseason resume because he didn't play on teams that were as good as Andy Pettitte's. That's Mark Burley. So I know when you start putting people on your ballot who accomplished a lot, but could have accomplished more if you think about it, that's a slippery slope. It opens up a lot of things. It opens up a lot of questions. It raises certain doubts maybe that people might have. And of course, it ultimately has people saying, well, if you're going to elect that guy or name that guy on your ballot, what about this guy? What about that guy? This is the challenge that Hall of Fame voters face, because when you select one, then you're looking at another, and that's how it rolls. And that's why I've always tried to keep the bar high, but some would argue that I'm not keeping the bar as high as I should be with this particular ballot. Well, they will argue that this is the Hall of the Very Good with some of my selections. I get it. But times are changing. Our standards should be changing with those times. And there is more of an emphasis now, because careers are shorter, pitchers' careers in particular, on peak performance, a peak of 7 years perhaps, and not 10. My initial prerequisite when I began as a Hall of Fame voter, I think that was in the late 90s, was tenure dominance. That's what I want. And that's what I still look at the most. But there are players who don't quite get to that, whose peaks are shorter and yet still have amazing careers. And that is why I picked some of the players that I did. And I say in the column, I think I've blown it in the past with guys like Mattingly and Murphy. Don Mattingly, Dale Murphy, great careers, abrupt endings perhaps to their careers, or sharp declines in the case of Murphy. Mattingly, a guy who his back just betrayed him and his career ended prematurely. So I feel we blew it then, and I don't want to blow it anymore. And that was one theme. And the other theme here is that we don't elect enough Hall of Famers. If you look at the induction rates year by year, Travis Sawchik has written about this. They keep going down. And the percentage of Hall of Famers to the percentage of players is reducing each year, each decade. And that's, in some lines, I'm sure, a good trend, but I'm not sure it's a fair trend. We're not honoring enough players and pitchers in particular. We've elected, the BBWAA has, only 3 starting pitchers since 2015. Roy Halladay, Mike Messina, and last year, of course, CC Sabathia. 3 pitchers in a decade, 3 starting pitchers in a decade, that probably isn't enough. Now, coming up in due time, Verlander, Scherzer, Kershaw, they will be all Hall of Famers, of course, and they're slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famers. Zach Greinke probably will be a Hall of Famer too, but none of those pitchers is eligible until 2029. So what are we going to do in the interim? Stop electing starting pitchers? I don't know that that's a very wise thing to do. And you might say, well, you do this, but you're lowering standards. I get that argument. I certainly get it. But last year we elected CC Sabathia. Now, CC Sabathia, in my mind, was certainly a Hall of Famer. He received 86% of the vote on the first ballot. Andy Pettitte, when you look at some of their statistical categories, is almost identical to Sabathia. Sabathia was more dominant, more accomplished. No one would dispute that, I don't believe. But if CC got 86% of the vote on the first ballot, it forced me to reconsider what I thought of Pettitte, or just how Pettitte fits into this whole equation. And ultimately, I voted for Pettitte this year when I did not last year, or even before that. He's been on the ballot now 7 times. This is his 8th, I believe. So once I elected Pettitte, or voted for Pettitte, I should say, he's not elected yet, I thought, okay, let's look beyond that. Let's look at the other names on the ballot. Guy who might be similar to Pettitte, Mark Burley. Quite similar. These 2 guys are perhaps 2 of the last pitchers who are going to reach 3,000 innings. There are a couple of actives that will do that. Verlander is there. Scherzer will get there. And their cases for the Hall are based largely on longevity and, of course, excellence during their course of the careers. Burley was quite similar to Pettitte. You can look at the numbers. Go check them out on baseballreference.com. Check them out on Fangraphs, wherever you look at your statistics. They're similar. The difference, largely, is Pettitte had 270 innings in the postseason, a record, where Burley had only 30. Didn't get as much opportunity in October. Now, you can't hold Pettitte's success against him in the postseason. He helped the Yankees get there. He pitched well for them in many cases in the postseason. 12 starts in clinchers. The Yankees won 8 of them. The Astros, too, were part of that equation with him. So, yes, you cannot hold that against him. It's part of his story. It's part of his career. But I don't know that you can hold it against Burley that he wasn't quite that. Now, the 2 other pitchers on my ballot, Felix Hernandez, he's a classic example of what we might see in the future. A guy with a shorter peak who shone brightly for not the longest period of time, but definitely was a huge star. You look at his Cy Young finishes, all he accomplished over a 9-year period between the ages of 21 and 29. He was one of the best pitchers in the sport. Those pitchers to me, those players to me, are the people we should be honoring. So Felix Hernandez, that was a fairly easy call for me now that I'm adjusting and recalibrating. On the position player side, next year we're going to have Buster Posey. Buster Posey, only 1,500 career hits. Well, Buster Posey is a guy that's going to be most likely a Hall of Famer. And that's why guys like Utley and Wright and Pedroia, to me, are more valid now. So Felix fits into that category. Shorter peak, but brilliant, great career. Finally, Cole Hamels. Now, here's the one guy I didn't expect to be voting for. I didn't think of him as, when he was active, as a Hall of Fame player. Didn't think of him as Hall of Fame material. But part of this process is you go back and look. And sometimes what we see and what we believe is not always a fair measure of a player's career. That's why we go look at the numbers, go back and talk to people, and think about this again. Now, Cole Hamels is a guy that I expect will be kind of a not popular choice in the balloting this year. He'll do okay. He'll get over 5%, the minimum required to stay on the ballot. But a number of people I spoke with said, no, he's not. But you look at his ERA plus. That's his ERA when adjusted for park and league factors. Better than Pettitte, better than Burley. It's right up there with a lot of great pitchers, Hall of Fame pitchers. In fact, if he got into the Hall of Fame, his ERA plus would rank 10th among all left-handers. ahead of Glavine, ahead of Sabathia, ahead of Steve Carlton. I was surprised to learn all this. He also had a pretty stellar postseason resume. Great in 2008, not so great in 2009, but overall, an amazing, impressive career. So that's where I am with all this. And I'll say this as I said in the column. I'm not sure I'm right. I'm never sure I'm right. Everybody has their own view of what a Hall of Famer is. Fans, writers, people in the industry. That's the beauty of the process, that we can agree to disagree, that we'll debate this and just talk about it and talk about it and talk about it some more. Now, when he mentioned that, I should mention as well that I have a line for where I draw. Let me put this better. I have a line with the steroid era candidates. I will not vote for candidates who tested positive or were confirmed to have used after rules were put in place. That's why I don't vote for A-Rod and Manny. A lot of people will disagree with that as well. But again, this is a subjective thing. This is a personal thing, and most voters put a ton of care and thought into this. If you disagree with my choices, I get it. You're certainly entitled to your opinion, and I certainly respect that opinion. I don't pretend, and no writer who is voting should pretend that their opinion is the end-all be-all. But in my view with this, there aren't right or wrong answers. There really are only your own answers. All right, with that, we complete the Inside Dish. We'll be back with Grillin Ken right after this.
Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal is proudly part of the Foul Territory Network.
Hear authentic conversations and unique insights across 19 separate shows hosted by esteemed writers and all-stars alike. The people who know our game best.
I'm happy to be on. You guys have been doing such a great job with this show.
We debate baseball's hottest news while also chatting with over 700 current Major League players in laid-back, long-form conversations unique to FT.
One of my heels on the baseline, and then it's just trust the guy's going to bunt it and crash as hard as I can.
Catch us live from baseball's biggest events, winter meetings, all-star games, and award shows with access the other guys wish they could get.
That was my whole key to hitting was I mastered BP.
Subscribe on YouTube and rate 5 stars wherever you listen. Support your favorites and share us with a friend. We are changing the way baseball is consumed, and we want you right there with us. The Foul Territory Network. Baseball, the way it should be covered. BetMGM account holders, today, how about an Any Sport Parlay Boost token? You can score a bigger payout if your wager with that token hits. Tokens can be used on parlays and on same-game parlays. Gambling problem or concern? There's help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Time now for Grillin Ken, the part of the show where I answer your questions. Let's go rapid fire on this Monday. First question from Tyler Mack Smith. Does Gallen have any kind of market? Could we see a 1 or 2 year deal with multiple team options? I wrote about Zach Gallen the other day, and it seems to me that because he received a qualifying offer, it's hurting him, and he's not coming off his best season. And it's certainly possible that he will do what other Scott Boras clients have done in recent years and take a shorter deal with the idea of having a great year, no qualifying offer after this year or next year, whenever he opts out or ends that deal, and then going back into the market with a better chance to be an unrestricted free agent and make more money. That seems to me the path that he will get. I don't know about multiple team options. I can see player options. I can see a 2-year deal with an opt-out after 1, a 3-year deal with an opt-out after 2, something along those lines. That to me is perhaps where Zach Gallen is headed. Next question. This one is from the Frosty Trex 8784. Pirates and Eugenio Suarez. There a connection there? Is there a connection there? I would expect, I certainly expect and actually know that the Pirates are interested in Eugenio Suarez. And the problem they're going to face is the problem they faced with other free agents as well. If Eugenio Suarez has a choice to play for a better team, a more competitive team, in his opinion, he's going to choose that team. I don't know that the Pirates, in the minds of free agents, are quite there yet. They're better. They're fully capable with one more hitter, in my opinion, of competing for a wild card spot because their pitching, starting pitching, is so good. But if Eugenio Suarez can go to Boston, if he can return to one of his former teams, Seattle or Arizona, that might be his preference. All right, next question. This one comes from Video Game Nation 26. Ken, what has been your favorite offseason move so far? Wow, that's a good one. I have to think about this. I did like the 3-team trade between Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, and Houston. I thought that was kind of a cool move. And 3-team trades are always interesting. That was the one where the Pirates acquired Brandon Lau and the Astros acquired Mike Burrows. The Astros then, and of course the Pirates too, sent some prospects to Tampa Bay. Not the hugest of names, but it showed to me what the Pirates are going to need to do, need to make trades, because of the free agents, only Ryan O'Hearn has agreed to go there. So I like that move. The free agent market, I'd have to think about it and take a deeper look at which moves I like best. All right, next question. Oh, no more questions. We're done. Hey, thanks everyone for watching and listening. I wasn't paying attention there. Foul Territory coming up at 1 p.m. Eastern. We've got Jim Bowden and Kenley Jansen joining AJ Przinsky, Eric Kratz, and Alana Rizzo. I want to thank everyone for watching. Thank everyone for listening. We will be back Thursday, 12:30 Eastern, live show with Alana Rizzo.